Marlon Brando's struggles led to success, and he won his first Academy Award in 1955 for On the Waterfront.
It's a wonderful moment and a rare one, and I'm certainly indebted. Thank you.
Unlike many of his peers who worked under long-term contracts with individual studios, Brando's meteoric rise to stardom largely freed him to negotiate lucrative deals on individually chosen films. But Waterfront would prove a creative pinnacle that he would not reach again for many years.
His own career after On the Waterfront went into a kind of a nosedive. They stopped making Brando kind of movies right there in the mid-50s.
It was the end of the black and white movie, really. The end of these wonderful kind of small movies that said something.
CinemaScope had arrived. Large-scale color spectacles that didn't say much but looked flashy. It was a desperate attempt by Hollywood to compete with television, which had stolen a half of its audience.
And all those things only served to confuse and anger and possibly even frighten Brando.
Brando tried to find a way to be a player in this new world and still do serious work. In the 1957 film Sayonara, he plays a U.S. military officer who pursues a forbidden interracial romance.
He took that picture because he thought he could say something really useful about racism.
Oh, Tilly, you stupid, ignorant slob. I mean, go ahead and marry this slant-eyed runt if you want to. It'll serve you right.
He really thought that was an important movie. And then, you know, it got out of hand. It got to be this big spectacle. So what would have been a good project for him, because it was in Technicolor, because it was in CinemaScope, because they kept saying, well, as long as we got all these kabuki guys, let's show a kabuki. But it wasn't satisfying to him.
Despite the film's lack of subtlety, Brando got an Academy Award nomination for his role in Sayonara. Brando was one of the top 10 box office draws in the world, but he was feeling limited by the narrowness of Hollywood and wanted to do projects of substance.
Would you say on the whole that the movie people are doing a good job?
I think that some of the producers could make an effort to stretch a little bit, because I think people I think that they could appeal to what is a little more elevated in people instead of the common denominator.
Looking for creative independence, Brando formed his own company called Penbaker Productions, after his mother's maiden name. The company was run by his father, Marlon Sr.
Marlon and his dad had always fought. It was an adversarial relationship from the get-go. Sr. was made president of Pennybaker Productions and now had to answer to Marlon.
For the company's first production, Brando chose a Western for Paramount Pictures called One-Eyed Jacks. As director, he created a personal, at times even autobiographical film.
At the center of that movie is an interesting, tormented relationship that's obviously a symbolic projection of Brando's relationship with his own father, Dad, you know, played by Carl Malden.
You're one-eyed Jack around here, Dad. I seen the other side of your face.
Sure, kid.
It's Dad, that movie. Dad is flogging him, and Dad is beating up on him, and Dad is betraying him. Well, draw your own conclusions.
Marlon Sr. wasn't the only authority figure Marlon Jr. struggled against.
Get up, you tub of guts.
Wanting to craft his own film, Brando fired both the original director Stanley Kubrick and original writer Sam Peckinpah. He took charge of the production, but soon things were out of control.
With Marlon, he could not be hurried, could not be rushed.
He would, for instance, rehearse every extra and give all the extras stuff to improvise. And there are maybe 100 extras. He spent weeks doing things like that.
In the first week of shooting, the assistant cameraman tapped Marlon on the shoulder and said, "You're looking through the wrong end of the rangefinder." Marlon turned around with usual chutzpah and said, "Well, no wonder we're going so slowly."
As One-Eyed Jacks fell further behind schedule and went more over budget, Brando flaunted all controls. Paramount executive Frank Freeman, frustrated by the slow pace of production, sent Walter Seltzer to tell Brando to speed up or else.
And he said, "Oh, the hell with it." He proceeded to go back to work. I said, "Marlon, be reasonable." And he said, "No."
Finally, Freeman went in person to the set, determined to rein Brando in.
And Marlon, who had eyes in the back of his head, saw us coming, and he turned around, a beatific smile on his face, and he embraced Mr. Freeman. And Freeman said, "Marlon, I've seen the last couple days rushes. They're wonderful. Keep up the good work." As Freeman and I retreated, I looked at Marlon, and he did this to me.
Rebelling against studio constraints, Brando shot almost 200 miles of film and spent more than 3 times the original budget. Eventually, Paramount took the project over and changed Brando's unhappy ending to a happy one.
He was terribly hurt, not entirely understanding of the necessity of finally getting this picture ready for screen.
Brando used to gorge on food near the end of the shooting of this movie because he was so upset about what was happening, about the studio taking over, taking control. He was very, very upset.
He turned aggressively, not just to food for escape, but to women.
The conquest is very important to Marlon. Everything was a game, a sexual game.
He was super sexed. He was constantly on the prowl.
He was very attractive, and he had a great style for seduction. He could manipulate feelings like nobody else.
Marlon's been married legally only twice, but he has children by many women. I believe I came up with 15 children, some of whom have never been acknowledged.
In 1954, Brando's first brush with marriage came when he was engaged to French woman Josiane Béranger.
She was the babysitter for Marlon's psychoanalyst. He thought that she was the answer to the demands of stardom, and he would go off and marry this fisherman's daughter from the south of France.
The engagement was broken off suddenly, and in 1957 he married actress Anna Kashfi. They quickly divorced and began a more than decade-long custody battle over their son, Christian. In 1960, Brando married actress Movita Castaneda, with whom he had 2 children. And then, soon after, on the set of MGM's Mutiny on the Bounty in Tahiti, he met co-star Tarita Terapaya, who later bore his son, Tehotu, and daughter, Cheyenne.
Fletcher Christian is my name.
Is my name.
Brando was still one of the most powerful stars in the world, and on the set of Mutiny, he and the production spiraled out of control.
Every night was a party that went on and on and on, and it was a constant stream of women, and that took precedence over the movie. The studio was almost bankrupted by the cost overruns on this single film.
MGM's Mutiny suffered from a variety of problems. In addition to Brando's excesses, there were monsoons, constant script revisions, and 3 different directors.
Brando was made to take the fall for that production. The decade after that picture, Brando was just scrambling to make a living.
You remarkable pig. You can thank whatever pig god you pray to, you haven't quite turned me into a murderer.
Frustrated by his battles with Hollywood, the 42-year-old Brando purchased a string of islands off the coast of Tahiti. He moved to the South Pacific and became openly cynical about movie making.
He would get into these raps with the press where he'd say, oh, movies are just product, and I'm just a hack, I'm just a guy making a living.
It is a business. It's no more than that. And those who pretend that it's an art, I think, are misguided. And acting is a craft, and it's a profession not unlike being an electrician, plumbing, or an economist. It's a way of getting on and providing food and shelter for yourself and family.
Throughout the 60s, Brando alienated people in Hollywood with his disinterested attitude. During this period, Robert Duvall worked with him on The Chase.
I can remember we got together and we talked. I said to my wife, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to be like brothers. And he never spoke to me for 8 weeks. I said right then, this guy is worse than a woman. He won't even say hello to you. He knows you want him to say hello to you, so he doesn't do it. So what's that proving? Kind of put me off, but yeah, that's the way he is.
With his attention focused in the South Pacific, Brando became a marked man in Hollywood, and in the 60s his career fell to new lows, including a string of 10 failures in a row. His role in the 1968 film Candy was particularly striking.
It was a goof. I mean, this is a bizarre thing. You had Ringo Starr, Sugar Ray Robinson. It was an incredible cast of characters. It wasn't a movie, it was a party.
He plays a guru, an Indian guru.
So you must find that place, right on, which we call the center of all breath.
My lungs?
No, it is not that simple.
It's a terrible movie. It's just not good.
Perhaps it is here. I think it is. So soon. We found it so soon.
While many thought Brando had lost his center as an actor, his focus had shifted to a new terrain. And when we returned,
he arrived extremely overweight, much more so than our agreement with him.